Joined here today with Jacob J. Fellows. He's going to talk to us a little bit about cooking wild game. And I'm thinking first up, Jacob, why don't you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Well, my name's Jacob Fellows. Like you said, I'm from Little Valley, New York, out in the country. I live in my Amish cabin that I had made for $12,000. Um, I was a chef for 24 years. The beginning of my career was probably the best. I spent 5 years as an apprentice under a French chef who has gone on to cook at some Michelin star restaurants. The restaurant I cooked at him with was not a Michelin star restaurant, but his capabilities were already there at that point. And I grew up hunting, gardening, and foraging pretty much my entire life, right up until about 2005, when things just got too hectic, and I started getting back into it recently, more about 2010. So
Nice.
that's where I am.
So you talk about, the French cooking that you apprenticeshiped under. And you talk about the wild game. So do you kind of like level up, I guess, your outdoor your game meats in comparison to like what I would do is just, basically sear steak, throw a little mashed potatoes with it and be good to go. Are you kind of just trying to raise the bar a little bit more than that?
Well, that's kind of a complicated answer. In the beginning, when I first started learning how to cook French cuisine, the guy that I learned from had just come from San Francisco. He came to the hinterlands. He came to Ellicottville, find a lot of the items that he was used to. So what we started to do is fill in the gaps with local items that we could either forage for or grow ourselves. So it's actually kind of an interesting process where I don't know if you want to, we bastardized French recipes with local ingredients,
Okay.
because like we pick our own wild leeks. We do fiddleheads when we could. Lily of the Valley. Not sure if you know, like
Mhm.
cowslips. I did I did trout lilies, which I'll never do again because that's actually a diuretic. I found that out. Um, we
Oh
did our own
man.
sunchokes. I had my own herb garden, vegetable garden. Then we did a lot of buying from local gardeners and farmers. Those farm stands on the side of the road are legit. They always have a lot of really good products that you can get to bolster um, what you need. Um, but yeah, so like even when it comes to deer, like this year, um, there's my dog. My sister and my father both got deer this year. Um, I don't normally hunt anymore. I just do all the butchering and the processing. Um, they both got deer, so they wanted the meat. Sure, they got it. I took the leg bones and all the fat around the organs and then all the suet fat, like underneath the hide. And of
Okay.
course, I rendered down the suet fat and actually made suet for the birds. I rendered down all the fat around the organs. I always forget the name of it, but it's good for cooking if you render it down. And it's got an incredibly high flash point. So you can really sear something in some good deer fat. And it's hard as a rock, like once you render it down. And then with the bones, the leg bones, I made those into demi-glace. So
Oh,
cooked them off with some herbs and tomato paste. Threw that in a big stock pot with mirepoix, which is celery, onions, and carrots. Deglazed all that once it had caramelized nicely with some red wine, Madeira, Marsala. Let the alcohol burn off, filled it up with water, and then left that for about 4 days on a low simmer, skimming off the grease until I had a beautiful, probably about 16 quarts of liquid. Strained everything out and then took that liquid and reduced it down to about 1 quart. So I had about that much. And it's just like a beautiful gelatin, and you can add it to any sauce as you go, any gravy, anything like that. and I actually froze it in ice cube trays, and I have it in my freezer
Oh,
up to
really?
my parents' house. Yeah. Yep. So that's a good way to use a lot of the stuff that a lot of hunters aren't going to use. Um, I mean, you definitely don't want to use the back, you don't want to use the spine or the skull, of course, but those leg bones on a deer, they make some wonderful, wonderful demi-glace or espagnole if you don't reduce it. So yes, it did. It kind of went both ways where you're saying, did it step up my cooking a game a notch? Yes, but my ability to forage and cook wild game also upped my game in the French cuisine. Because
Okay.
otherwise, what would we have used?
Right, exactly. You kind of had to use all that local produce, local whatever you can more or less find.
Correct.
Uh,
Yep.
Kind of been really eye-opening. I know, I guess I'd be more of the standard hunter where, I'll just throw the bones back, throw the hide back, and just grab all the meat and go,
Mhm.
package that all up. But so it's kind of interesting to really break it down even further than just the meat. Actually understand what you can do
Yeah.
with all the scraps and everything.
We also used to use it for fox and coyote trapping when I was a kid. The gut piles. As soon as you have a gut pile, usually it's in you're in your fur bearer seasons.
Hmm.
So you just take your conibears up there, set them up within the gut pile, and whatever's snooping around, you have a possibility to get.
Yeah, yeah, very true.
So that was always the thing. But I did have one fox that eluded me. I didn't descent my trap well enough, and actually
Mhm.
put the deer heart right on the tongs, the whatever the hell you call those on a conibear. Um, it could smell me. So what it did is it actually pissed on the heart to get the
Oh,
trap to spring, and then it took the bait and ran off.
smart fox.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
they're cunning little bastards.
Yeah, that's for sure. So you keep bringing up
Mhm.
the idea of foraging, and how do you go about like finding all this different stuff? Like, I know you just gave us a whole big list of everything. And is it just you just stumbled across it one day, or do you know kind of the general area of where to find it? Like
Um,
these riverbanks or fields, that kind of thing?
yeah, well, I grew up with my mother grew up doing a lot more foraging and gardening, and my dad grew up doing trapping and hunting mostly. We don't have any real fishermen in my immediate family, but um, and we're on familial land that we've been on for 60 years. So I know where the leaks are. Um, I know where the birch trees are. I know where the maple trees are. Um, every now and then you stumble across something. A few years ago, I found a nice little spot with some watercress, which is
Okay.
just a wonderful little green that you can eat. The other thing that we've been eating is that horrible Japanese knotweed. You ever seen the
Okay.
Japanese knotweed? Uh, it looks like ornamental bamboo and it just spreads everywhere.
Okay. I think I've heard of it.
I haven't seen as much in Chautauqua County actually, but there's quite a bit down here. It looks like bamboo's little cousin. Um, One of the things that's good about it is that it comes up early in the spring and you just get like a nice little shoot about this big. And you can pull that up and eat it. Um, but yeah, it's a knowledge of seasonality. Right now we're tapping maple trees. As soon as I pull the taps from the maple trees, I'll tap the birch trees. And right about that time is when the leeks will pop up, or ramps, whatever you want to call them if you're civilized. Um, Once the ramps pop up and are gone, then you move into your gardening season, of course. Um, Halfway through your gardening season, you get your berry season usually, and then you just kind of, I don't know, follow the seasons, I suppose. You know,
So it's like a year-round foraging for you then. You pretty much
just the winter. We just have
year-round.
the winter off.
Hmm.
But I still do make black birch tea when I have a sore throat. So if you can
Okay.
find a black birch tree, you find the little, like the younger branches that are, smaller than your pinky. If you snap those branches up and steep them in water for about 10 minutes, in hot water, you'll get a really nice peppermint tea that's like good for the throat. So you can do
Cool.
that in the
Yeah.
winter.
Nice. It'd be something definitely to look into for this winter.
Mhm. Yep.
I mean, we're kind of to the tail end, hopefully. So
I
we'll see
mean,
what.
I hope so.
I mean, right now it's raining 50, so I'm sure it's supposed to snow again. So
Mhm.
who knows? We could be waiting until April before the snow actually fully lifts.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. What's it out like in like a lamb, out like a lion, or out however that saying goes. Um, yeah, and it's Western New York, so you never know.
Right. We get all the Lake Erie lake effect. Everything, it just
Yep.
screws it all up. So as far as game goes, what other game meats do you cook besides deer? Is there anything like interesting?
Well, my favorite, and I know I'm gonna sound like a real big dumb hillbilly for this, but my favorite is squirrel. Squirrel was always a treat. Um, because you have to get so dang many of them before it's like reasonable to like go ahead and cook it for a family meal. That it was always a treat when we had more than enough legs in the freezer and mom would dredge them in flour and fry them up for us. Um, let's see, we do duck. Um, Duck, a lot of these local hunters don't even like to cook ducks, which really kind of pisses me off because it's so good. But people just don't get how to do it. Because I
That
heard a
one you
joke.
go. That one you got kind of yeah, very hard not to overcook it. That's what you're trying not to do, right? Is that the big issue
Um,
with it?
it's greasy and it's gamey,
Mm,
and it can be tough. So usually what I do with duck is I cut out the breasts, I cut out the legs, I set those to the side. I bake it off real quick so I can pull all the fat off of it. Put the fat in one pot, put all the bones in another pot with mirepoix and water to make a nice duck stock. But all that fat I render down nice and slow, run it through a chinois, which is a really fine screen to
okay.
get all the debris and junk out of it. So you have a nice clean duck fat. You leave it until it's at room temperature. Take your breasts and your legs and pack it back in there like in a bread loaf kind of pan, something about that size. Put it in the back of your fridge for a week to 2 weeks. And just let that fat work through the meat and tenderize it. And
Okay.
a lot of the times that'll actually cook it. So then you can just put it in a pan. You don't even need to put butter, oil, or anything in there because it's already coated in fat. Um, and just cook it. And the best part about duck breast is you can take a temp on it. You don't have to cook it until it's dead, like a chicken,
Right.
where, eat a raw chicken, you're going to kill yourself.
Right.
Um,
So you can
Duck, you
actually eat
can't.
like a mid rare.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's how
Yeah.
most people prefer it.
Okay.
You cook it over that, it gets gummy. It gets like tough.
Mhm.
Um, but I've heard a lot of duck hunters in this area say they just don't eat duck. Um, 'Cause I'd heard the best recipe for duck is to cook it on a cedar shank, nice and low for 90 minutes. Pull it out, throw away the duck, and eat the cedar shank because it has more flavor.
Oh
I
man.
I just that it annoys me so much.
Yeah, why hunt if you're not
Um,
going to actually enjoy the meat?
that's my complaint. But I have been getting a little bit more into um, fish. I don't
Okay.
cook it as often because I don't really fish, but I have a friend he just absolutely loves fishing. So all summer we're eating pike and trout, like maybe a little bit of bass here and there, but that's about it. Um, yeah, and a little bit of bullhead. Bullhead's always good.
Okay. Yeah, I've never had pike. Traditionally what I do is I'll cook up perch and
Mm,
walleye. Those are the two that if I'm lucky enough to catch a trout, I mean, it's kind of an ongoing joke. I'm a terrible trout fisherman. I'm god awful at. I can be out there all day long and not get a single bite. And with trout, for the most part, you can look in and see them in the water.
Mhm.
I still can't catch them. I still can't do anything with it. So trout not so big, but mainly perch and walleye.
Mm,
And especially with those, I like to just batter them up, and just fry them. And
yeah,
that's the
because
best way, I think.
the perch, you get the saddles, right? Like it's like around each side, then it saddles up over the top. So you kind of have like two fillets connected by a mid piece.
Yeah.
I think that's generally how I've seen it.
And then the walleye, you get the two fillets, and then you also get the cheeks.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm not as big of a fisherman. We never got into it. It's when I was a kid, it always bored the hell out of my father, so we never did it. He just
I,
never got into it. Hey, you go
I
now, buddy.
it's a lot of waiting. I know that.
Yep. And then as far as other game, well, grouse. We used to eat a lot of grouse when I was a kid, but in Little Valley, there's not as many logging operations going on. So we used to have a lot of grouse for the that would come up when you have after logging operation, they drop all the tops on the ground, and you have
Yep.
that like just the brush piles, acres and acres of brush piles. I mean, that's grouse habitat. We just don't have that like we used to. So it's just not as plentiful, you
Right.
know. Um,
I actually I saw two grouse this hunting season. Both times, of course, I have a deer slug loaded and wasn't about to just blow apart a grouse. So I had to watch it walk by. It's like that's another one. If I could be out there specifically for grouse and it wouldn't show up. But deer season, they'll pop right up, no problem.
yep. No, and they'll scare the hell out of you too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, every
they're loud
time,
when they take off.
every damn time. The one that I used to hate the most was it's the other one, the woodcock. It's
Yep.
like the smaller one that it waits until you're almost stepping on it and just yeah. I don't like those little jerks either.
Oh man.
But I don't think. I mean, I've never cooked bear. Um, I don't think anybody in my family's ever got a bear for me to cook, but I'm waiting. I'd love
Right.
to. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I've even cooked. I mean, we've cooked a lot of farmed game. I mean, but I don't know how much that counts. So, um, red elk, you can buy straight from one of the purveyors. I think it's Fossil Farms is what used to be one of the big ones. Um, I'm not even sure it's called red elk. I think it's or is it red deer and then it's whatever. Um, and we also used to get a lot of boar from that
Okay.
same farm. That was pretty good. Some of it I got was rather greasy, so you had to watch out for that. But whatever, that wasn't that big of a deal. Um, yeah. And the weirdest, funnest thing to cook is actually ostrich. If you ever get the chance
Ostrich.
to cook ostrich, yep. It
I
is
don't even
the
think.
reddest meat I've ever cooked.
Oh, really? I have
Yep. Yep.
never even tried ostrich. I don't even think I've been presented with an opportunity to give it a
Well,
shot.
if you ever get the opportunity, eat it up. It's really good. Really, really good.
All right, I certainly will.
Mhm.
All right. So I know you've been talking a lot about, how you prepare different things. Now, if you were to give me one recipe of any game animal of your choice, what would it be? And then how would you cook it?
Oh, well,
You
I
would be
mean,
like, this is the recipe everyone has to try. What would it be?
oh boy. Well, I know the meal that, there for years I was I stopped enjoying cooking just because I'd been doing it for so long. And down at my camp the one night, I cooked. It was venison. I know that's kind of passe, but I marinated some venison and soy sauce, brown sugar, some starch, Worcestershire sauce, and some beer. And then I had a whole mess of leeks. And I had some dandelion wine that I made, but it hadn't formed properly, so it almost had like a snot-like consistency to it. It wasn't good to drink. It wasn't like I did something wrong, but
Right. Okay.
um, but I slowly caramelized those leeks in a nice big wok, and then deglazed it, like dumped in some of that dandelion wine with some salt and pepper, chopped rosemary and thyme, and then just let it candy, like it just candied beautifully. And I served that with smashed parsnips. I did some roasted garlic and rosemary, and then did a quick fry of the venison. And with having the cornstarch in the marinade, it just thickened into a gravy right as you cooked it. I just put in a little bit of stock and like put that over the smashed parsnips with some of those leeks on top. That was a death row meal. And all my friends liked it so much that, it kind of made me feel better about cooking. It got me
Right.
back
Got you
into it.
excited again.
It got me excited again. Exactly. And I know that's probably not the most complicated thing to cook, but that's not the point of cooking. To me, the point of cooking is, well, feeding people. It's very fundamental to who we are and to survival, but
Mhm.
it's about that enjoyment and that fraternity. And
Right.
because nobody makes good decisions on an empty stomach, and everybody's happier on a full stomach.
Right. Exactly.
So that's what really got me back into it. There was a lot of overly complicated stuff that I cooked when I was doing the French gig. I did a lot of rabbit raviolis because a lot of people are afraid of rabbit. If you put
Mhm.
rabbit on a menu in Western New York, a lot of people have that image of like what you see at the county fair, or what you have as a pet, and it's hard to
Right.
sell. But if you shred that rabbit meat up and add some tarragon and some mustard seed, something like that, and I do it in a Dijon cream sauce,
Mhm.
that's approachable for people. So I did do a lot of that.
Okay.
Because the rabbit fricassee, when I used to do that, which is just a lightly fried, uh, basically we always did half a rabbit without the head. So you just cut it, like bisect it right down the middle, and then you get the front leg and the back leg. We just cook it like that. Unless you're a European that's used to that, or even a lot of Asian folks that are used to they're not, how do I say it without insulting America? Like, Americans are afraid of bones. Americans are
Right.
afraid of anything that isn't turkey, chicken, beef, and some
I can.
fish. Western New York, if it's not haddock, they might not even explore it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
I can see
so,
that. I can see what you mean by that.
yeah, and I'm not trying to be overly insulting. It's the way that a lot of us grew up. Chicken breast instead of half a chicken or a chicken thigh or anything like that. Dark meat scares the hell out of people in America.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so we did a lot of that stuff when I was cooking at Stone Creek. Um, a lot of rabbit, a lot of rabbit. Rabbit was good to cook, and a ton of duck. Like I said, a ton of duck because it's cheaper, especially if you're buying from a purveyor. So even if it's not wild game, it still cooks up the same way. But you can be, a kitchen manager or a chef, and a whole Muscovy duck, with the neck, the head, the everything,
Right.
costs less than.
Hello. I think you froze.
Are you
Heck.
there now?
Yep. Yeah, you froze.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's fine.
Sorry, the
If you
weather is
want,
a little.
if you want to get back, you were talking about how it was cheaper to buy a whole duck instead of just the breasts.
Yeah, so if
That's
you
about
buy
where it
an
worked.
entire Muscovy duck, yep.
Mhm.
If you buy an entire Muscovy duck, it is cheaper than just buying the duck breast. And if you buy that, that whole duck, you can render the fat down and pack like I said before, pack the breast and the legs into it. And that's called confit, like duck confit. So you have that preparation. And then you have the bones that you can roast off and then use in a stock. So then you have a duck stock that you can make the sauce for the duck out of. So why not? It does take extra work, but
You get more out of
going
it.
through those steps, you get
Mm.
you get a lot more out of it. Same thing with shrimp and fish. I'd always order my shrimp shell on, and I would always order my fish as whole as you possibly could.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you could save all the scraps off of fish, and that's how you make your fumés, which is just a fancy way for like a fish stock.
Okay.
So you can use like shrimp shells, lobster shells, bits of any fish that you have. Usually you want to get away from the greasier fish like salmon. Salmon's a notoriously greasy kind of fish.
Right.
Oily, I guess, is the right word. But anything that can give you a scrap that is usable that they would otherwise, well, that a lot of other people otherwise don't use, that's your value added right there.
Right.
Because like you were saying, anybody can slap like a venison steak on the grill, but who can serve it with a demi-glace made from the same animal,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
who can pan sear it in the fat from the same animal. So there's really just kind of getting into like that end of wild game cooking that I enjoy. So like I don't
Right.
have a huge extensive catalog of different game I've cooked, but I've cooked every bit of it that I could.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you take care of every little piece that you pretty much can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we do.
Nice.
Mhm. Gosh, I'm trying to think of anything else that I've killed around here. Yeah, I don't want. Huh. Yeah, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, sir.
Well, honestly, I think that we have
Ford.
fantastic episode so far. I think we're doing really good. Realistically, we got about like a half hour of recording, so that's not bad. Honestly, bunch of great stuff too. Like I said,
Oh, thank you.
Bunch of great, especially using all the whole deer process and everything. I actually found that really interesting. I unfortunately didn't get a deer this year, so yeah.
That's kind of absurd for your family, isn't it?
Well, I mean, nowadays you gotta think Zach's out of town. Zach's in Colorado, so it's really just me going out there now at this point.
I thought, doesn't your grandmother hunt?
No, not anymore. She'll go out. I think that she might have spent 3-4 hours maybe total.
Oh wow.
She really doesn't anymore. My uncle came into town. He ended up getting an 8-point opening day of gun season. And then that was it for him. He was only in for the one like little weekend there. So a lot of it's just me. I'm the only one.
Yeah, fucking Zach. When we were at the EBC that I think that last year that both he and I worked in Ellicottville, one of the waitresses, Laura Kohler, she asked if Zach got another deer, if she could buy it off him because he got so many deer, And he said, yeah, and I volunteered. I'm like, you know what? I'll do it for 50. I'll process it for $50. I like you, Laura. Not thinking that Zach would get a deer. I think there was like 2 days left in the damn season. The next day he came in with the biggest frickin' doe that I've ever seen, like that I've seen in a long time. Me and my
Right.
father got some big does back in the day. This doe is massive, and I don't know what he shot it with, but he broke the leg. Broke the leg, went through the heart, and came out the other side. And it's just, I mean, it was a hole.
Right. Yep.
That took me my entire day off of cutting it up. Like, cause like the next day was my day off. That's what I did for $50. Like I put my foot right in my mouth. I didn't think that he'd do it.
Oh man, it's tedious too. That silver skin gets me every time. I sit there and just, I'll do probably about the first half, and I'm sitting here just like, my neck hurts from looking down so much, trying to cut it all off, and it's just a pain.
Well, I usually half freeze it. Like get it so it's half froze, and then you can start yanking on it, and it'll pull easier.
Right.
And then I just use I either use a straight up fish fillet knife, or this is so stupid, but I have a Cutco steak knife that works phenomenally. It works way better than it ought to. Like I have beautiful skinning knives, but just this one stupid
steak knife is just
steak knife. And there's no reason that it should work as well as it does, but you're spending 20 hours, sitting there screwing around with a deer and that's what else is absurd is like, how much does it cost to have somebody process your deer? Like, it can't be that expensive. I haven't paid for it in decades, but I almost think that I'd probably be better off just paying for it than doing it myself, but whatever.
See, I'll do it myself because I don't know. I get kind of weirded out about, I want to make sure it's my deer and they're just not cutting up a whole shit ton of it. And I like making sure that, hey, I know that this is fully mine. Because I've heard some horror stories about like people who, bring in a halfway decent deer, by the time they actually end up getting processed and everything, it's like they were expecting a lot more than what they actually came home with. And for what you pay for it, I mean, it's expensive. Like, I want to say it's like $90 to $100 just to have a basic cut on it.
Oh, no
anything
kidding.
Oh yeah, anything else past that, I mean, you want some sausage, you want anything jerky, that's all premium.
Yeah, I imagine. That actually just reminds me, hearts. People don't cook the hearts enough, especially deer hearts, rabbit hearts, and duck hearts. So I used to do hearts two different ways. You can either cut it up nice and thin, so it almost looks like circular spaghetti, basically. Cook it up in some butter with brown sugar, wait for it to caramelize nicely. Deglaze with some brandy, let all the alcohol cook off. That's just wonderful. Another way that like a lot of you rednecks would probably like it for like hunting camp, I grind it up with some roasted pistachios, roasted asparagus, thyme, a little bit of ginger, nutmeg, and rosemary. Grind it all right up until it's a nice paste. Push it through a screen to get all the bumps and everything, so it's just nice paste. And then I'm sure a lot of the people that watch this wouldn't have a terrine pan. Do you know what a terrine pan is?
No.
It looks like a loaf pan, and on each side of it, it's got a pin. So you can pull it out, and it gives you 2 L's. So when you cook something in it, you can just pull the pins and pull the sides off. So I take a terrine pan, and I'd either take like actual leek greens, which, an actual, like a French leek, the greens are like that. I'd blanch them and shock them. It's hot water and then an ice cubes, just so you get the green to come to the surface. It makes it look prettier. I'd soak that in gelatin and lay it through the terrine all the way through it. You can substitute those greens for bacon, which a lot of your guys would probably like better. And then I'd pack it with that deer heart and the pistachios and everything that I ground up. Pack it right in there, fold it up and over, wrap that sucker in plastic about 5-6 times so it's like nice and tight. Cook it in a water bath for 90 minutes at 350. Pull it out and I'd always set it in the back of the cooler, the back of the fridge, and you weigh it down. Usually I do it with like 10 cans, like the big cans.
Yep.
Put those on top to weigh it down. Leave it for about a week. Pull it out, and you just cut it up into nice slices. That's pate. That's all pate is. And then you serve that with some cornichons, which are just like the nice little pickles, some brioche bread or some crackers. That's something that guys would probably love to have at a camp.
Nice little snack. And now,
Yeah.
can you do that with any heart, or is that like deer heart specific?
No, I basically do the same dang thing with the rabbit hearts, duck hearts, because again, when you buy a rabbit or a duck whole, just like your Thanksgiving turkey, it has the hearts and like whatever else like jammed up into it. And you pull it out and it's in a little paper. I'd save enough of the rabbit hearts to the side to where once I accumulated like a dozen of them, I could roast it off and grind it up and make it into a pate.
Nice.
But,
Well, that's certainly
that's,
something different to give a shot.
it's I'm not huge on the organ meat, but
Right.
that is a way that I'll eat it. I'll eat some chitlins here and there too, but I'm not big on organ meat. But pate is a wonderful way to eat it. And then just slicing it up really fine and cooking anything in browned butter and brown sugar is gonna taste good.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah. So sorry, that just reminded me. I never went over the organ meats.
No, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, it's all good information coming out. So excited. I've never cooked a heart, so I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but it might be something to give a shot.
Yeah, if you ever have questions, you know how to get a hold of me. And there's a wonderful, God, I wish I still had it here. I have a wonderful cookbook on how to cook wild game. I just got it a few years ago, but I loaned it to a buddy. I wish I had it here. But if any of the folks that watch this want to get like a good cookbook that's going to just teach you like a variety of good standard ways to cook, get the CIA's cookbook, the Culinary Institute of America. It's a big freaking textbook. You get last year's or like the previous edition. It'll usually go about $40 to $50, but I mean, it's a massive book and it tells you everything you need to know. And a lot of it actually has illustrations. So like if you want to know how to like truss a bird or like tie up a roast, things like that, it'll show you how to tie the knots properly. And but that's definitely something to look into if you want to cook wild game.
Nice. It has like a bunch of different wild game in it, like good variety of wild game. You're not just talking like a small handful. There's actually quite a bit in there.
There is. A lot of it is focused more on technique.
Right.
But it's technique that can be applied to any wild game that you get. So
Okay.
if there's a fish recipe in there that, is specifically for, I don't know, like char or like John Dory or something like that, there's no reason that you can't use that with like a lake perch or a rainbow trout or a brook trout or walleye.
Right. Okay.
Because walleye is another wonderful fish. That's probably my favorite local fish is walleye. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's what I meant to say earlier. I always get walleye and pike mixed up.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Always.
Yeah, I mean they're the same. They're like cousins. You know what I mean? I want to say they're from the same family. Perch, walleye, pike, they're all kind of there.
I love it when other people cook perch because it is such. There's no meat on a perch, and it takes so much to like get a serving of it that I don't want to screw with it. Like just let somebody else. Same thing with raspberries. I'll always pay for freshly picked raspberries. I'll always pay for it because I hate picking them. It's the middle of July. They're in the middle of my forest where they grow. and you've got to wear pants and like long sleeves to go through the briars to get those damn things. I would rather pay than pick those.
Oh,
That
man.
being said, I always pick my own every year because I don't know anybody that sells wild raspberries, to be honest.
I can't even come up with anyone off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I know we have a blueberry place right down the road from us, right where I live in Jamestown. There's a You Pick Blueberry where you go out there
Oh.
and, you know, you pick it yourself and they just have rows upon rows of blueberries.
Yep, there's that. There's another one, and oh, right on the old expressway coming into Jamestown. Um, it's like a You Pick Strawberries. I think it's like before 86 Lumber and Faulkner there. You just
Okay,
back
yep.
up a bit, it's right there. We used to go there a lot. And then yeah, there's Blueberry Hill, I think in Randolph we used to go to a lot. Burdick Blueberries. We used to go there way too often. But that's how we survived when I was a kid.
Right. Going around picking everything.
Yeah, because then my parents didn't have to spend money on groceries. And they could spend it on, you know, honestly, the principal of their house. Like that's how we paid off the house and the land so quick. It was a 30-year mortgage and we paid it off in just under 10 years.
Nice.
And,
Yes.
and that was because of me and my sisters and my mom and dad hunting, foraging, gardening. We had 6 cows on the farm. We sold hay, we sold firewood. So it's definitely a good lifestyle if you want to save some money and get ahead.
Oh yeah. We have a small garden, but it's nothing too crazy. And zucchinis, man. We had some great zucchini years coming in. Like these things would be, you know, they'd be like 1.5 foot long zucchini. You're just like,
Yep.
holy shit, pick them. You know, 2-3 more would come out. It's like, oh, it's a great zucchini year.
One thing I used to do with all those zucchini and like the summer squash is we used to get so dang many of them. Especially when I was the executive head chef at the Springville Country Club. We had a garden right on the course. I'd get so many of them, we'd make it into milk and freeze it for the later season.
Oh, really?
So if you just peel it, cut it down the middle, take out whatever seeds are there, run it through a blender until it's like just straight liquid, run that through a screen to get out any of the big stuff that didn't blend up, and then save that, you know, that's zucchini milk. And then a lot of the times I'd use that in pasta. So
Oh, really?
your pasta is what, 3-2-1, 3-part flour, 2 parts eggs, 1 part water. I know I'm goofing that up, but instead of the water, you can add the zucchini milk, or you can pretty much add any damn liquid you want. That's how you get all like the cool different types of pastas. One way to do it, but we'd save that. I used to make it into now they funnel cakes. I used to make it into taco shells, like all sorts of stuff, just by using that zucchini milk. It's a good way to use it.
Nice. Yeah, that's a way I definitely wouldn't have ever thought of using it. That's for sure.
Well, we needed to figure out a way to get it into the freezer so that we could save it for later in the year. Otherwise, it was going to spoil. You know?
Yeah, you can't just put whole zucchinis in there, especially if you have a whole bunch of them, you know.
No, I mean you can save. We always save at my parents' house across the street the butternut squash. Usually we put about 60 in the basement in fall. Well, usually about half of that will rot. You know, it will go bad and we'll have to get rid of it. But that's still 30 that we have throughout the winter.
Right.
Same thing with I don't know what they call them out there, but we always call them stone pears. They're like they're a round pear.
Okay.
And when they fall off the tree, they're hard as rocks. You're meant to put them into a bushel basket and stow them in your basement. So in the winter, they'll soften up enough where you can actually eat them. We always call them stone pears. I'm not sure what
Yeah, I'm
normal
not.
non-redneck people call them. So
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you.
yeah, we do a
Um,
lot with those too.